Hello and welcome to the Rugby Paper Roundup. I'm your host, Ben Jaycock. I'm delighted to be joined today by Irish sportswriter and producer Pat McCarry. We are just a few days away from arguably the match of the autumn as Rassie Erasmus's South Africa enter Dublin looking for his regime's first ever win in Ireland. Pat, a big win over Australia last time out to get back on track after that All Blacks defeat in Chicago. What's the mood like in Ireland ahead of Saturday's huge game?
Yeah, we're feeling an awful lot better after putting the record score on Australia. So because things were a bit. I know one result doesn't solve everything, but things were a little bit dicey here, and we're kind of a nation of pessimists sometimes. Like we worry about things an awful lot. So we were very worried going into that All Blacks game that a lot of the players weren't ready and have match minutes under their belts as well, and that kind of proved to be correct. And then we went out against Japan and it was a very stop-start kind of game, good few handling errors. The line-out was wobbly again, and we started to kind of go, oh. And at the same time, we were seeing what South Africa were doing, like especially the France game was incredible. Just to go with 14 men for so long and just demolish them near the end was a real kind of shot across the bows. So there's some apprehension, but we know beating Australia, well, it's not going to solve all the problems, but it definitely makes us feel a little bit better and think that we can go into this game at the weekend. And, we have a pretty good record against them in the 21st century, especially at home. So, there's a little bit more optimism in the country now after that.
Absolutely. I mean, I reported on the game for the Rugby Paper last weekend, and I was really impressed with the way Ireland dealt with Australia. They kind of got back into it, Australia, towards the end of the first half, and you thought, okay, could have a game on here, and then second half just blew them away, and was so commanding. There was a few like Doris was back to his best. Prendergast was impressive. It was just a really kind of convincing win, and that guy that really got you back on track after kind of a lot of talk about Ireland are over the hill now, that they're aging, all these things coming out after just one defeat, but it was kind of a real kind of statement performance. But obviously, the South Africa, it doesn't get any harder than South Africa on Saturday. But I guess the thing is that South Africa need to tidy up their discipline, because the last two games they've had a red card. So I mean, how many players will they have on the field? That's the main thing. And they've come out in the press, haven't they? I think the South African assistant coach said that there's a vendetta against South Africa, that they get more cards than anyone else, which I don't think is true whatsoever personally. But it just adds a bit of fuel to the fire. I mean, Pat, give us an insight into this rivalry and how much it means to both sides, because obviously, it went to new heights before the 2023 World Cup with Ireland top of the world rankings. South Africa fans were thinking, well, we're world champions. Why aren't we number one? Then obviously Ireland beat South Africa in the pool stages in that amazing match in Paris, and then you had I remember that picture of the Springboks fan crying his eyes out whilst the rest of the stadium is singing zombie zombie, and then obviously. There was those comments afterwards, apparently, from the Irish players saying, "Oh yeah, we'll see you in the final," and kind of overlooking the All Blacks game, which obviously Ireland came up just short in the end. It was, and then South Africa adopted the Rassie version of that zombie song by the Cranberries, and obviously went on to win the World Cup in the end. Then there was the two Test series last year, which obviously one game each. I believe Ireland, it certainly felt like from the outside, Ireland were a little bit undercooked for that. It wasn't quite a full strength team, I don't believe. But they were some big names were missing, and to take a test, and certainly the way they did it with that Jack Crowley drop goal was outstanding. So that kind of leveled things up. So I guess it's kind of even Stevens really. Or you could say actually that when was the last time South Africa beat Ireland?
Yeah. Well, what is it? It's that was a great series. And there's been a little bit of talk about that already. Like Thomas Dutoit was up yesterday for media in Dublin, and everyone was asking him, "Is this the unofficial third test of that series?" Because the Boks won the first one, Ireland kind of came out then and won the second one, and it's such an interesting conversation to have, because like you kind of mentioned the drop goal there. Like the hero of that game was Kieran Frawley, and he's not even involved in the kind of in this kind of match now. Well, I don't think he's going to be involved at the weekend unless kind of we have some kind of injury that we don't know about. So it's amazing how quickly things can change as well. And yeah, there's a nice, it is growing. Like, I suppose there was John Smith, the former South Africa captain, was on I think the RTE podcast over here in Ireland a couple of days ago, and he said you only kind of know if there's a real rivalry between the countries if you just get a load of abuse, and if the South African fans kind of hate you, like, like, so you've only gained their respect if they start kind of getting verbal with you and start kind of giving you grief online. And that's kind of happened to Ireland a little bit over the last 5 or 6 years. Like, since they've been consistently up there in the rankings and there's a rivalry growing, it's really been good. And then that was it. I think there was a lot of history initially under Joe Schmidt where, like, they went over there in 2016. At that time, it was CJ Stander got he was sent off for a high shot in the first test, and Ireland went on and won that game with 14 men. Like, and it looked like here we were, like, that's their first ever test win on South African soil. But they went on to kind of lose the last two. But then that was a real kind of statement of intent that Ireland were here. Later on that year, they went to beat the All Blacks in Chicago, and what came from that was the Grand Slam in 2018. So it's almost gone back around a decade. And then even kind of thinking of, like, I remember, being in Dublin, and I wasn't at the game in 2004, but I was really near to it. I was at the RDS for something, and in Lansdowne Road, Ronan O'Gara scored a try. We beat the Springboks. It was a really tight game, and he did this kind of famous, jig of the heels and jumping up and clicking his heels together as he scored as well. But I remember being, like, maybe a couple of kilometers away, and you could hear the roar coming out of the stadium. And that was such a big deal to kind of beat the Springboks, 20 years ago. And that's where the confidence is built in Ireland over the last 2 decades. And now, yeah, it is a real rivalry. Like, I'm sure the Boks would say that, playing against New Zealand is the really big one. Like, we can see the test matches that they've organized for next year. But Ireland's up there, like, and those kind of, it's the same as Ireland and the All Blacks. The only way, like Brian O'Driscoll would have said it himself, the only way you're going to get their respect is by starting to beat them, like, and beat them regularly as well. So we're getting there, like, and even, like, one of the nicest guys in rugby, Eben Etzebeth, kind of, for him to be kind of talking about, like, those revelations about, like, I'm sure maybe Irish people sometimes were very overly polite as well. Like, so I'm sure those comments in the World Cup were just kind of like, oh, listen, we'll see you in the final. Like, we're both good sides, all the best. And yeah, the way he took that was kind of in black and white. It was this Irish arrogance as well. Like, so, but yeah, Etzebeth's kind of, lovely guy. But if you could see even him getting charged up, that the rivalry is starting to really mean something. So it'll be a great game. There's been some classics between Ireland and the Boks over the last 15 years, 20 years as well. I think stretching back to that O'Gara try that he scored, I remember we beat them in the fog in Croke Park in 2009. And I was at that game as a fan, like, that day. And I got a seat on my own. Like, my dad was somewhere else. I was sitting a couple of rows back. So I sit beside the stranger for the whole game, and we beat them in the fog that day. And that was the same Boks team that had beaten the Lions. And it was a really great game. Like, so many Irish players stepped up and had great games. And when the final whistle sounded, like, I turned around and I had no one to hug. Like, so me and this stranger looked at each other and we're like, yeah, just hugged each other. And we shared this special moment and never saw each other again. Like, so yeah, it really means a lot to beat South Africa, because, they're at the moment the best side in the world. So it'd take a huge Irish performance at the weekend to get the job done.
It certainly would. I mean, they're not just the best side in the world at the minute. I think they're the best side by a country mile. I don't think there's anyone close to them right now. With how kind of New Zealand are just not quite what they used to be, and then even France as well. I think of kind of underwhelmed, maybe the right word, in the last kind of couple of years. They haven't really quite reached their potential. But this is probably the only. Possibly Eden Park. They probably still want to take that scalp at Eden Park, don't they? Yeah, the Springboks. They want to end that remarkable New Zealand winning streak there. But this is one of the few things in world rugby they haven't achieved. They've won everywhere else. They've won in Paris. They've won at Twickenham. They've never won in Dublin under Rassie Erasmus. So they'll be obviously fired up for this game. It's going to be an absolute cracker. I think it'll be maybe a bit like the World Cup game, low scoring, very physical, attritional contest. A lot of penalties, maybe kicks, rather than your free flowing tries. But Pat, the big debate in Ireland at the minute, Crowley or Prendergast. I mean, Prendergast has kind of maybe struggled a little bit in recent months. Crowley obviously had his number in that URC game when Munster took the scalp against Leinster. But Prendergast went really well for about an hour, didn't he, on Saturday? Then replaced by Crowley, who also played pretty well off the bench, albeit already against a quite well-beaten Australian team. Interesting to see which direction Andy Farrell goes and where his pecking order is at the minute.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like Farrell, even at the end of that game when we beat the Wallabies at the weekend, was speaking about that idea that he wants to not share it around, but it's like he was even mentioning Harry Byrne, like, oh, he's still in the mix as well. Like, I don't think we'll see Byrne feature in the squad, but he's very eager to kind of say that like this is an open competition. And but I think both lads have spoken out well. Like they say they get on well with each other. Like there's no reports of like that they go in opposite directions. Like they do kind of chat to each other. I suppose they both know they're under the spotlight an awful lot. Like it's been a big thing. I'm sure it's the same. Like it is the same. Like England have so many class players at the moment, like Ford and Smith and Marcus Smith as well. And like those kind of debates go on all the time. And 10 is kind of, you're almost like the playmaker, you're the shot caller. So it is easy to see why it's such a big conversation. I got to chat to Sam Prendergast like back in August before the season started, and he was mentioning that like a lot of when things are going well, it's easy to get carried away and think like, he's even saying, I did find myself kind of like you said, you wouldn't be human if you were to start thinking about the Lions, because you're starting to see yourself in headlines. And I remember we had a great game against Scotland and he got man of the match, and people are starting to say, yeah, he should make the Lions squad. Within the space of 2 or 3 weeks, like he was, this guy should be dropped. What's everybody thinking? And like it must have been very hard for those two lads to kind of miss out on the Lions squad when the Lions head coach and a load of the assistant coaches were Irish. Like they must have thought, surely I have a chance here. Like, so that would have hurt them, like the fact that then they had to go tour Georgia and Portugal, like, while the rest of the world was watching the Lions tour, would have been very tough for them. So, but they both kind of came back. Like Jack Crowley started the season brilliantly for Munster, like went to Croke Park in a Munster team and that shocked Leinster, and he was the main guy, and him and Ty Byrne were brilliant that day. He was very feisty, like giving the home fans like a lot of stick, like and kind of cupping his ear, and it was great to see, like and some kind of fire there as well. Like so, he got the chance against the All Blacks, and then so it'll be very interesting to see like where Prendergast did against Australia what we all know he's capable of. He's this brilliant attacking talent. He's kind of plays on the edge. He can kind of kick it. He's got a lovely kind of pass on him as well, and he can really pick a pass. But then again, like he saw for that Len Ikitau try, like where he kind of was just like a turnstile almost for it. Like he kind of, it is the big problem. I'm sure he knows it himself, and everybody keeps talking about when he puts on this weight, eventually he's probably gradually building up as well. But I think a lot of people think in a year's time he'll be closer to the finished article. But I think Farrell is going to give both of the guys experience. I would be leaning towards Crowley starting this game, like especially as you kind of mentioned as well, like it might be a bit more attritional, it might be a bit more tactical, there might be more kicking involved as well, and so a lot of that will kind of play into it. And then is Prendergast the guy to come on for the final 20-30 minutes, like Crowley did, but maybe when the game is a bit more open and kind of do some damage, like, so that might be the hope. It'll be interesting to see, but whoever it's going to be, like neither again are kind of the at that top end yet. Like they both of them kind of, like Crowley was getting there, but and Prendergast, I said, like is a great attacking talent, needs to kind of fix his defense as well. But it'll be a great experience for both of them, like against this Springbok side. And I was chatting to a South African podcaster, Harry Jones, there last night, and he was just saying he would prefer to see Prendergast start, and he said because he could just imagine the likes of like Jasper Wiese and Evan Etzebeth going after him, and like no matter where they hide him in the backfield, they said like they'll be looking for him. Like so, it'll be fascinating to see, because Crowley is the type of guy who doesn't kind of back down from any kind of challenges like that. Like, but can he bring out his attacking game, and can he operate in those, like instead of having 5 seconds to make a decision, you have 2 or 3 seconds to make a decision. Like that's what it's like when you play the box. Like it's unbelievable pressure. So yeah, really big call. And yeah, like I'm glad it's not me who's making the decision anyway.
Yes, it seems like between them it's a flip of the coin.
Mm.
And Ireland are lucky to have two very
Mm.
talented tens at their disposal. That can't be dismissed. It seems to me, looking from the outside, obviously from an English perspective, am I right in saying that the feeling is that Prendergast's ceiling is potentially higher than Crowley's? There's more to his game. Those kind of kick passes, which he does brilliantly. His style of play is easier on the eye. He's more of a flashy player. You just got to kind of fix that defensive vulnerabilities a little bit, just to maybe perhaps it reminds me a little bit of completely different stature and kind of style of play actually as well. But George Ford's defensive skill, I guess,
Mm.
has been questioned in years gone by, and maybe England have done a better job now of maybe looking after him, protecting him a lot better. Do you think maybe that's got something to do with that, or is it just in Test match rugby there is no hiding, and like you said, guys like Visa, Etzebeth, Diolande, whoever, Esterhazen are gonna think, right, I'm not running at open space. I'm running at Prendergast because I know I'm gonna get through him.
Yeah, yeah, like, and that's it. Like, there's like, I remember like Sanchez, the Argentinian 10, like a few years back. Like, I remember Ireland going after him in Dublin, and getting great rewards from it as well. And it is a thing that you often do. You find a weakness, and then you'll see where Ireland might drop him into the back three, like, and so there'll be up and unders heading his way as well. Like, so they'll be going after him, because until you almost that's why Sexton in his early years, he had to kind of, I don't know, in his head he thought he had to prove himself. So like Sexton would go up against the toughest players, and he might end up, like, he got a few concussions over the years. Like, I remember him trying to stop Bastero on a few occasions. Like, but it's almost like you have to throw yourself, under the tires a few times and show everybody that, like, you're not afraid of these guys coming at you. Like, and like Prendergast did that at the weekend. Now I know it was only James O'Connor, like, wasn't one of the real, wasn't a Rob Valentini, but like, he got a turnover, like, forced a knock on by kind of going in and putting a shot in on James O'Connor. Like, so that was a good early success. And yeah, he's the type of guy who'd like to kind of prove himself that way. But yeah, he's definitely not there yet. But yeah, you got it correct though. In Ireland, he's looked upon as the guy that, Prendergast might be your like 7, 8 out of 10 guy, but Prendergast might get you like 9 out of 10 every now and then, and he'd be able to break a game open. He's very similar to Sexton, as in, like, he just plays at a much higher line, and he tests the fence a lot more, because like Crowley might just drop back and feed it out the back line, but like Prendergast is right up there, like, and that opens things up. And sometimes it's like, yeah, you watch games on TV, or you're kind of following it, a bit of coverage, or you're seeing clips, but when you go to see a game live, when you're kind of up in the stands, you can kind of see his eye for a pass is pretty impressive. Like, so I think that's what it is. It's like, if he can kind of, it's very, because he is a tall guy, like, he's same as Sexton as well. I think he's 6'3". Like, he's for a lot of us journalists, like, we're kind of we'll write about how small a guy is, and then you go and interview him, and you'll be kind of looking up, like, and you feel like an absolute fraud. Like, you're saying you're like, oh, this guy needs to get bigger, like, he's already way bigger than you, like, but then when you see him out, it's almost like you're out in the land of giants, like, and there's just kind of big behemoths roaming all over the pitch, like, so he really does kind of need to you can kind of see he's got a kind of frame where he's the potential to kind of put on a few more kilograms and hopefully hold it okay. So yeah, when he's 24, 25, he'll be kind of hitting his prime. And all the people like Andy Farrell, Paul O'Connell, like, even Sexton's involved in the coaching setup. He should be a great player. But as you said, it's a great problem to have, like, to be having this debate all the time. Like, yeah, we had that with David Humphreys and Ronan O'Gara. Then we had O'Gara and Sexton as well. And, even back in the day, like, Ollie Campbell and Tony Ward, and kind of that's part of the fun, isn't it? Like, and, a lot of other players must kind of, if another player has a bad game and they lose, none of the talk is often about them. It's like, what 10 should start instead. Like, so for a lot of the other guys, you can just do your stuff in the background and let all of us people in the media and the fans debate who should wear the 10 jersey. But yeah, like, as I mentioned, this is going to be a great test for whoever starts at the weekend.
It's great for the domestic leagues as well. I've certainly found that in the Prem this season, when Northampton Saints play Harlequins, or Northampton against Sale Sharks, you're always looking at that key battle is always going to be forward against Finn Smith or forward against Marcus Smith, or it has been in the past with Saracens and Harlequins when Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell were getting at it. It's always just it creates that extra angle and that interest for the league. But I mean, like I touched on it a little bit earlier, Pat, that Ireland are considered to be kind of aging. A lot of players over the hill. I also read that Bundy Aki said he wants to find a new level to his game, but he's already like mid-30s, I believe. He's certainly getting on. He's not the only one as well. There's not many that are coming through. And also the under-20s team have really been really poor the last 12 months. Finished bottom of the Six Nations. We're languishing, I think, down in 11th or 12th in the World Championship. So it doesn't seem to be many kind of green shoots coming through, or is that just one bad year? No reason to hit the panic button just yet.
Yeah, like no, it's a good point. Like, and you can actually see even there, as you mentioned, like the under-20s, like they've now appointed like Cully Tucker, who was kind of an assistant, and he was kind of involved with the Ireland A setup. He's over at Connacht as well. Like, so they're trying to address that in a way, because they had Noel McNamara, who's with Bordeaux now and went to the Sharks. He was a great coach. Richie Murphy came in, did a brilliant job, got a couple of Grand Slams. He's now at Ulster, like, and so it's almost like, you need the kind of strong kind of coach in there to kind of breed the guys for the kind of the next step as well. So yeah, they'll have been concerned. Like, I suppose you can't go around winning Grand Slams forever, like at under 20 level, but that's so good. Like when you kind of have players coming through, like that have got a bit of, big game experience where they've won where it counts. So that is a concern in Ireland, that because we always talk in Ireland about this production line, like it's like the four provinces. It's a great setup. Sometimes it's almost like saying, should there be like I remember when London Irish were having their struggles, there was talks over here about like should they be the fifth province almost, and like should the IRFU invest in them and kind of start giving players who can't get a game at the provinces time as well. And sometimes that's maybe in Ireland, because I said sometimes I say we are pessimistic. Other times we get far too ahead of ourselves when we have a couple of wins. And so, for one stage, we're talking about a fifth province and kind of like, where else are we going to get all of our great players meaningful minutes as well? Like, so, a lot of talk about that. But I think it is the concern. Like, I suppose it's like, you can just see in Ireland, like, and especially people in the media and fans who are kind of really diehards, you can see history repeating itself. Like, and that's an issue sometimes where, you see in the past, like Paul O'Connell would have went in his mid-30s to a World Cup, or Brian O'Driscoll would have went in his mid-30s. Johnny Sexton was kind of 37, 38 going to a World Cup. Rory Best, I think, was 37. Sexton broke that record in the last thing. And then you saw in that last game when we got knocked out in the quarterfinals by the All Blacks, like Jack Crowley didn't get a minute. Sexton played the full 80 minutes. And it's like you're leaning back on your, trusted lieutenants, whereas Test rugby isn't like that anymore. It's like you have to trust the next generation coming up and the younger lads as well, and you have to use your bench properly. And so Ireland have kind of suffered through that. And then, everybody looked at it. Like I was doing a piece last week for Rugby Pass, and I think I said, like, if you looked at the current squad they have right now, 18 of them would be in their 30s going into that World Cup in 2027. So, and Australia is a place where it's normally the 20-somethings kind of really prosper. Like if you're in your 30s, you kind of you used to, I think I remember seeing that on the 2013 Lions tour. Gatland only selected 2 players in their 30s. Like, so it's a place where the younger guys prosper. It's hotter, like the temperatures, more of an aspect. I know it's kind of not being played right in the middle of the summer, but harder pitches you're playing on, so it wears on the body a little bit. So we're the kind of, I suppose the media's role is sometimes to maybe remind people about this, and kind of we're the kind of the people who talk about, well, in the past this happened, because it was like that in 2023. Like we were saying to the coaches and the players, is having an aging squad a problem? They're like, no, it's not a problem. And then you get knocked out and you're found out by having an aging squad again. So I think Farrell's trying to, he's not a type of guy who kind of completely kind of sweeps out the old and brings in the new. Like he kept Peter O'Mahony and Conor Murray around for a couple of years, and it's almost like he wants to show the younger players that this is the standard. Like, and if you can convince your older players to stick around and be like a replacement for a year or two, it really is a great kind of passing of the torch as well. Like, but you're almost expecting, like, that's what Farrell wants. He wants some guy to come in and just grab the jersey, like, and not every player is capable of doing that. But like, you can see the likes of like Paddy McCarthy's come in, done really well. Tommy O'Brien's been kind of trusted with that number 14 jersey and has kind of done a good job. And then someone like Jamie Osborne, until he unfortunately got injured, was another guy like that. So Farrell loves these guys who kind of, you're almost like, you're tested, by fire in the training sessions, and you're going up against the kind of the pros and the legends, and you have to win the jersey back. But yeah, in Ireland, we'd love to just see, like, it was interesting there. We played Japan 2 weeks ago, and I think there was more people excited about the Spain game that Ireland A played, because that's where the young, exciting players are playing. Like, and so yeah, we're like that. I'm sure it's like the same, like, in England as well, in Wales. It's like there's always the new prospects coming through, and you want to see a few more blood. Is like there's a great guy at Connacht called Hugh Gavin. He's a centre, like really big, tall, kind of really well built kind of centre, and we're almost kind of fast tracking him in. Whereas Farrell just goes, no, I'll use Stuart McCloskey, who's almost would have been seen as like a fourth choice centre, obviously. And then he started 2 big games there in November, like, so. Yeah, it takes a while in Farrell's setup for you to kind of establish yourself, but I'm sure him and his coaches are aware, like they're trying to blood guys, but not doing it too quickly as well, because look how important world ranking points are, and you have to keep up forward momentum as well. But yeah, it is a concern in Ireland, and I think everybody would be happy if we came out of this test window with 3 or 4 guys with a few more minutes under their belt as well.
Yes, exactly, and that brings us on nicely to England. Arguably the team of the autumn. 10 wins in a row for Steve Borthwick's side. It's very interesting talking to you, Pat, because after that game in Dublin at the start of the Six Nations, and Borthwick's there was a lot of pressure on Borthwick. Where is this England team going? The run of results was really poor. Loads of near misses in the previous autumn and during the summer as well in New Zealand. Games they should have won, they couldn't get over the line. Was it a psychological thing? And it was almost like that game against Scotland, where England was so poor at Twickenham, but just about found a way to win, and also found a way to win against France as well at Twickenham. Maybe in a game that could have gone either way. I mean, France could have scored a load of tries if it wasn't just for really silly knock-ons and kind of walk-ins that somehow found a way not to score. But once you get that win and the ball starts rolling, you've seen that England have found a new level of confidence. Maybe a little bit of arrogance as well with certain players. Kind of tempering that line, but England are on a really, really strong position now, and you'd argue they'd be up there with the likes of Ireland, with the likes of France, with the likes of New Zealand, obviously, which they beat, and convincingly as well. They beat the All Blacks very convincingly on Saturday. They head into this Argentina game looking to make it 11 in a row, and if they go into the Six Nations on the back of 11 in a row, you'd put them right up there as title challengers in the Six Nations next year. And it's been a long time since you could say England are one of the favourites to win the Six Nations, because what was the last one during COVID? I believe England won the title. Would that have been 2021? I believe was the last time England won the Six Nations. That was obviously they played 4 rounds and then they played that final game in Rome, where obviously no one was there because it was under during lockdown. And then they just they got over the line there, beat Italy. But since then, they've never even been close to competing for the honours, whilst Ireland and France have dominated the tournament. Well, largely Ireland, actually. So, you've got to be kind of cautious now, haven't you, of England going into that Six Nations?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, and it's, I remember, like in, when England won the World Cup in 2003, like they were set up for, like, you thought this was going to be years of domination, and then they went out and kind of performed poorly in that 2004 Six Nations, and Ireland went over to Twickenham and beat them, like, and England kind of did being like the standard bearers for so long, like that Martin Johnson team under Clive Woodward, and then you feared what was to come, and then they kind of really fell off. And Wilkinson having all his injury issues over the years kind of was part of that, because he was the guy that was all built upon, and then he kind of struggled with injuries for a while. But like Eddie Jones came in, threatened to kind of then set up a new monopoly, and kind of he kind of a bit like Mourinho in a way. He comes in and was brilliant for 2 or 3 years, and then people start getting tired of the antics then as well. Like, but England were again like struggling for a while, and that's where like Ireland really took advantage of that kind of period where England and even France for like a good 10, 12 years were struggling, and Ireland and Wales all of a sudden started stacking up Grand Slam wins as well. Like, so I think the thing that I feared I suppose, maybe taking off the kind of completely the journalistic hat and kind of having the kind of fan hat on as well, was when England beat Ireland in, I think it was 2024, wasn't it? Yeah, Ireland went to Twickenham, and England got that great. It was the drop goal at the end to kind of win it, and then you're kind of going, because Borthwick was under a lot of pressure at the time, and England kind of put on a great performance in that game, kind of beat Ireland as well, and then denied Ireland the Grand Slam, like back-to-back Grand Slams. And I was just thinking, oh, we've like awakened something here on this side. Like, and if we had got the win, Borthwick might have even have lost his job. Like, that's how much pressure he was under at the time. And yeah, like, again, you have your own kind of internal biases as well. Like, but when you start seeing England doing really well, and Dupont's coming back for France as well, and Ireland are heading away to Paris and London in next year's Six Nations, you're like, oh, here we go. Like, this is going to be a tough one. Like, so, but it is at the same time, it's great to see it, like a strong England. Like, of course, being Irish, you prefer to be on the winning side more times than not. But it is great to see an England side where, like, whenever they come to town for a game, or you go to Twickenham for a game, there's a bit of bite to it as well. And that's what makes the games really kind of memorable as well. And it was a scary kind of thing at the weekend, seeing that England bench, and that's what probably helped them win that game, where the likes of, you had Cowan Dickey, you had Genge coming on, you had Pollock coming on, you had Curry, like, unbelievable. Like, and as you said, they didn't just kind of get over the line against the All Blacks. They beat them convincingly in the end, and that was a real statement. So they'll take a lot from that. Like, I found it interesting. Like, I know everybody chats about him as well, but like Henry Pollock, visibly, and kind of demonstrably licking his lips in that kind of facing the haka, and then I was just double checking. I was like, he is a sub, correct? Like, and then I was like, yeah, he's on the replacements bench, and he had like this main character energy, like, I'm gonna go out and smash everybody up. But then he came off the bench and he did what he normally did. He was an absolute pain in the ass as well, and kind of got in people's faces and won turnovers, and so it's good to see that kind of those kind of players coming up and and challenging now as well. So as you said, if they build on that, go like Argentina now, you wouldn't dismiss them. Ireland were lucky to kind of get over, beat them last year in Dublin. So they're always capable of kind of turning sides around. Like, even there in Dublin when they went and beat the Lions, and that was such a big deal to them. And they went to New Zealand and kind of got results as well. So it's not going to be easy, but as you said, if they get that 11 wins in a row going into the Six Nations, and you have this depth that's there. I love some of the Northampton players that have been fed into the squad now. Like Dingwall is he's almost doing what you've probably been seeing him doing for years for Saints as well. Like, but now he's doing it in an England jersey. So, it's good to see England, a strong England back. As much as I'd kind of like to beat them every time we come up against them.
Yeah. So of course, but yeah, speaking of Argentina. Yeah, you can't write them off. That remarkable comeback on Sunday in Edinburgh, 21-0 down, and it was one of those games. Obviously, I was, watching a bit of rugby on my day off on Sunday. I was watching it, and it got to about 60, 50, 55 minutes or so, and I was like, yeah, should I turn this off now, or watch something else? Watch a bit of Netflix or something. I was like, oh no, I'll stick with it for a bit. And then I was got that try, and you're like, in the end, they didn't just win by a couple of points. They put a score on them in the end. They won very comfortably. I mean, Scotland just completely just blew to pieces. I mean, it's such a capitulation that just no one saw coming. So yeah, Argentina will be a big test on Sunday, and you got to treat them with the respect that they deserve. Otherwise, you're going to come unstuck. But England sort of team news. Obviously, the team hasn't been released just yet. I expect it will be probably Thursday. That will likely come out. They haven't done a South Africa, then released on a Tuesday as they have done in previous weeks. But no Jamie George, no Tom Roebuck, no Ollie Lawrence, no Ollie Chesham or Tommy Freeman, which leaves a bit of a conundrum in the centres, Pat. Does he go for, obviously, aforementioned Dingwall and Daly, who if Daly might be back in time, or does he go for Jomo and Dingwall and move Dingwall to 13, where he does play a lot of his club rugby for Northampton, it must be said. But it also kind of reminds you that all these kind of like factory of talent that England tend to produce, certainly in the back row, and three arguably world class fly halves at their disposal, and they've got loads of wingers coming through as well. Certainly at hooker as well, they look strong and their props are coming through. But yeah, number 12 is a problem position for England. It has been since the days of Manu Tuolangi, I guess. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that you say that you've got that. Ireland have got Hugh Gavin coming through, the big, big physical guy who you like the look of. Well, England would love someone like that to come through and make the 12 jersey their own, because even Ollie Lawrence, who I said who's out injured, he's not really a 12 either. He's much better in that 13 slot where he's a bit more space to run into. He's not just someone that's just going to make a dent every time he has the ball like a Tuolangi. He's not that sort of player, actually. So it's interesting, isn't it, how England just can't produce these inside centres that are kind of the gain line winners.
Yeah, like you wonder, is this the occasion to to do the long threatened thing of just throwing Ben Earl in at 12 or something like that for the game, but yeah, maybe if you're on a 10-game winning streak, you don't want to jinx anything too much, but yeah, it's a shame for Lawrence, isn't it, there as well, 'cause he had such a brilliant game, almost he was unfortunate enough to miss the Lions tour. I think he probably would have made it if he hadn't got injured, and then does amazingly against New Zealand at the weekend, then kind of misses out. He never seems to get any kind of real momentum, does he? And then you had Farrell kind of was in that jersey for so long and did the job that maybe they just thought they were covered for a while, and then they didn't kind of really focus on kind of covering that area. I think you could be right. Dingwall and Daly might be a good option, I suppose. And again, how good was Daly, for that Lions tour? I only watched recently the TNT documentary, Lions Uncut, and sometimes they're reminders of just how important he was at that start of that tour, and he was almost on course for a Lions test spot again, and then went out. So yeah, he's a guy you can kind of plug in anywhere. It's great to have players like that. Osborne is like that for Ireland, where you can stick him anywhere in the back line as well. But yeah, it's something that I'm sure you'd be watching the under-20s and seeing who's coming up, because it's good to have a truck like a Tuilagi every now and then. You can kind of just go and just smash through the middle, or even though they're not really using them for starts at the moment, even a Jesse Creel or an Esterhazen, just a big unit who can kind of go and punch over some bodies and kind of make a hole for you. But yeah, that's a big call at the weekend. It'd be interesting to see where they go, and does the of Finn Smith kind of get a start again, or do they stick with what's going well for them at the moment in forward? And then, as you said, it's a so many riches there for England in the back row. That's one thing that Ireland and England are always kind of they're well stocked in that kind of department as well. But England just have so many great players the likes you could have, even like Ben Curry, he kind of missed out on kind of the Lions, and his brother, Tom getting in there, and kind of, there's plenty of options there. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. And does Borthwick start giving more lads at the end of this kind of test window a chance, or does he now focus on, as you said, let's go keep the win and run up and go into the Six Nations and let's go as strong as we can?
Yes, exactly. It's certainly a good debate. I should mention that Gloucester's Seb Atkinson, a lot's been made of him. He was unfortunate to miss this autumn through injury, but he is an out 12, and he looks the part. Had a really good summer tour of Argentina. He was excellent. So possibly he's the solution, but we shall see. Pat, the URC returns next week, just for 1 week only, until till the EPCR Champions Cup and Challenge Cup all kicks off the week after. It's an interesting weekend though, because it's a top of the table clash as Munster host Stormers in a really kind of fiery clash. It'll be interesting to see which team will lose their winning run. But yeah, Munster have been really impressive this season, haven't they?
Oh yeah, they've been great. It's amazing there. With Borthwick, the football equivalent is almost Manchester United as well. It's how things can be doom and gloom, and then you get no matter how you get the wins, as long as you get the wins, it doesn't matter. It's been a bit like that for Munster. I think Edinburgh should have beaten them in Cork earlier in the season and missed a few kicks off the tee, and and then sometimes you get over the line and you're not great, but you start getting 2 or 3 wins in a row, and it really builds. And they went up there to Leinster to Dublin and beat them in Croke Park, and that was a convincing win as well. And that does wonders for you. Like, and all of a sudden you look around the squad, and like I was doing predictions at the start of the season, and I was like, don't worry about Leinster. Leinster will be grand. And I was really worried about Munster and Ulster, and because I looked at their squad and it was like they looked like really shallow squads, and young lads kind of covering for the experienced guys. And both of those sides have proved me wrong so far. Like, we'll see how the season goes, but if you get off to a good start in a season, it means an awful lot to you. Like, Connacht have not done that. Like, Connacht have been in tight games but have not finished on the right side of it, and then it's so easy to get your momentum knocked that way. But Munster are flying. I think Clayton McMillan, like they've done another great job there. Like, Munster haven't got in like Rassie Erasmus and Jack Nienaber before. Like, every now and then they have a coaching coup, and that's one of them there, to get in Clayton McMillan, who'd got the Chiefs to, I think it was 3 Super Rugby finals in a row. Like, and he seems to have come in and kind of instilled them with a lot of confidence, and got a lot out of these players. And one bonus for them and going into that Stormers game is going to be that I think only 4 Munster players are involved in that senior Ireland squad, so they're not going to be. They can go close to full strength against Stormers, and that would be a real big win for them. Yeah, like, Stormers coming to Limerick, and the Munster fans they're well on the train now at this stage. Like, that should be close to a sellout, if not a sellout as well. And again, looking to keep that momentum up, because as you said, it's a strange thing. It comes back for one weekend, and then the focus is on the Champions Cup then as well. But wouldn't Munster love just to kind of get one more win and kind of set themselves up nicely for a run after Christmas?
Absolutely, I'm sure they would. But yeah, as you mentioned, Leinster languishing down in 7th, rather surprising for us up here. You obviously made that star signing of Rico Ioane to replace Geordie Barrett. One All Black comes out, one All Black comes in, but he's not playing for the All Blacks at the minute, and that's not just down to injury or anything. It's just down to purely selection. So that's a little bit of a concern. And why do you think that Leinster have started, by their standards, so poorly?
Well, yeah, it's I suppose it's the fixture gods. It was a bit tough on them, like that they had to give their lines players, like, I think it's like Sean O'Brien, who's coaching them now, but played, I think he went on 2 lines tours. I think Sean was saying, back in the day you might get a 2-week break after a Lions tour, but now they try and give players 5 weeks off. So they just didn't bring any of their Lions down to South Africa, and they started off, I think it was they started off down, I think it was like the Stormers and the Bulls they played, and you were expecting to even get out of there with a couple of bonus points, or maybe nick one result, and they got beaten. They came home with 0 points from 2 games, which is such a strange Leinster thing. Like, even though they had a good few Ireland internationals in the squad, there was still kind of younger guys and lads only kind of on their 3rd or 4th cap as well. So that was a bad start, and then I think everybody expected them to get back on track, but then losing to Munster, and so convincingly as well, was a bit of a worry. So there are concerns that you'd speak to a lot of guys. Like, I was talking to Dan Sheehan not so long ago, Sam Prendergast, and they considered that URC win over the Bulls last year to be the starting point of something new, whereas other people maybe who are kind of a bit further outside the camp are looking, saying, has Leinster's golden generation come and gone? And did they miss the chance to kind of win more Champions Cups as well? And Leinster even did that thing where they were always chasing the 5 stars, over the jersey, over the crest, to win the 5th European Cup. And now they've removed that from their kind of club jersey. They still have it for the Champions Cup jersey, but their domestic jersey, that's nothing about the stars again. So maybe they themselves know it's become a bit of an obsession, and they've got caught up in it as well, or maybe it's in the players' heads now at this stage. That URC win will be. I still think they'll be fine. They'll definitely probably finish in the top 4. Now come back and talk to me at the end of the season if they haven't. But I still think they'll recover well. But yeah, just a tough start going to South Africa for 2 away games without your big name players, and then kind of getting turned over by Munster as well when players were still. It was the first game of the season for the likes of Dan Sheehan, Jack Conan got pulled out of the squad late. Furlong and stuff like that. So it's been a bit like that where it's tough on them. But I do expect them to I think they got lucky with the fixtures then, as much as it was a tough start. Again, get Zebre, and I think Dragons are next as well. So they'll get back up, they'll climb the table again, and we'll see how they go. Like, but yeah, it changes things up a little bit, doesn't it? Like, it's the same as, like, as I said, England getting good again. Like, it's not a bad thing to have Leinster suffering a little bit, and every other team having a feeling like it's not a 1-horse race or a 2-horse race.
Yeah, exactly. It's exciting times for the league. That's what you want. A little bit of jeopardy, a few storylines like your usual suspects not doing as well as previously. But no, thank you so much for joining us, Pat. That's all we've got time for here on the latest edition of the Rugby Paper Roundup. Please follow Pat, as you can see on his handle on screen there. And yeah, obviously subscribe to the Rugby Paper. Give us a like. Subscribe on YouTube. Give us a review on Spotify as well. All helps. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Rugby Paper Roundup. So thank you a lot for joining us, and see you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.